The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, episode 54.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Make it so. Surrender is not an option.
Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is James Kirk.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We would have helped you get home if you had asked. That's who Starfleet is.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we've come back around to talking about Star Trek Discovery. We haven't talked about that in a long time, since the end of the second season, where we were going week by week. And so we are actually going back to talk about the first season. We've talked about the first season in an aggregate fashion. We talked about it as one big thing, or actually in two parts of a discussion, but we haven't done it episode by episode. So we've done episodes on the first two for the first season, which was sort of the pilot, the two-part pilot. Right. And this is the first Discovery, USS Discovery episode we have here. Right. And this is called Context is for Kings. So as you heard, joining me today is Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Corey is, as we've said in at other times, he's on assignment. He's taking the day off.
Which is literally, Miss Carey is literally on assignment. His bishop has assigned him to go do a retreat with the other priests of the diocese.
That's true. It is assignment, not from me. I haven't given him an assignment. So very nice to give him that time off. So folks, remember to like The Secrets of Star Trek on our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and to retweet the show on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, and leave comments there and send us some feedback using social media. We love to have conversations with you. We have great fans, great listeners who listen to the show and then will send us some tweets and sometimes links to interesting things that they've seen, YouTube videos and stuff like that. One of our Twitter listeners sent us a link to a new StarTrek.com video that has every instance of Make It So from The Next Generation.
Oh.
So a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. So,
someone made it so.
Someone did. But as I said, today we're talking about the third episode of the first season of Star Trek Discovery, which aired is sort of a misnomer. This was the A streaming, but it was released the first week of October in 2017, which, as we record this is August of 2019. It's funny to think about. It's been 2 years since that that came out. It's been a long time. And this is the first episode after the Battle of Binary Stars, and takes place 6 months after the start of the Klingon War.
Yeah, we know that because the words 6 months later appear on the screen.
Exactly. So there's no mistaking that. And we see Michael Burnham has been court-martialed and sentenced to life in prison. And so that's the end of Star Trek Discovery, and we're moving. No, of course not.
Yeah.
Something else is going to happen.
She's on a prison shuttle being transferred from one prison place to another prison place.
Well, to forced labor camp. I mean, the Federation seems to be a bit harsh here. It's a forced labor camp with terrible conditions. They talk about how a bunch of the former prisoners were killed in an industrial accident in this plant.
They're going to be dilithium miners. And since dilithium is, channels energy, maybe they have a lot of industrial accidents.
Yeah, something about a piezoelectric charge. Oh, maybe Harry Mudd will come and bring them wives, but that's another episode. So meanwhile, they're in the shuttle, and there's this bug infestation, space bug infestation on the outside of the shuttle that has to be cleared off. So the pilot gets up and goes outside the shuttle while it's in warp. What?
Well, I know that's a little. You might want to drop out of warp first.
Pull over.
So these are some kind of electro bug that feeds off of electrical power, and they're going to suck the ship dry if they don't deal with the infestation. And then they can either freeze to death or run out of oxygen, whichever comes first.
Right.
So the pilot gets out to go deal with that, leaving 4 prisoners, including Michael Burnham, inside, strapped, in a way they can't move, really.
Right.
They're like tied to pegs or something.
But like going outside, it's like you're going 70 miles an hour down the freeway, and you need to clear the bugs off the windshield. So you don't pull over, you climb out the window. You're on cruise control. No, you stop. Yeah. Because what happens? The worst that happens. The pilot gets knocked off the tether and goes floating off into space to die, apparently.
And despite the fact they're at warp, she like goes floating forward, not just blown off the back of the shuttle.
Yes. Maybe inside the warp bubble, there's no sense of velocity. Anyway,
and despite the fact Discovery swoops in and rescues the shuttle, but nobody seems to care about the pilot. So she's just gone.
Well, it makes me wonder: is this a coincidence? Does this?
Well, we're going to learn it's not.
Yeah,
but yeah,
something engineered by Lorca, maybe.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is that in this whole thing, we're going to die here. The autopilot is broken. The pilot is gone. And Burnham just seems completely unconcerned that they are about to die.
Yeah, I have that in my notes that she's just sitting there. The other prisoners are freaking out, and she's just sitting there relaxed. And partly it's her Vulcan upbringing, but partly I think I have in my notes, she's just indifferent to her own death. She blames herself because the other prisoners were talking about how, like, just on one ship, more than 8,000 people died in the Klingon War, just on this one ship.
Was it just one ship? I think it was everyone at the battle. I thought it was 8,000 at the battle. But the other prisoner's cousin died on one ship.
Okay. Yeah. And it's like 8,000 people. Yeah, that does sound big for a ship in this era.
Yeah.
But Burnham knows the exact number of people who died at this. And so it's clearly weighing on her. And I think she's got a death wish at this point, because she's like, that would actually end my suffering.
Well, yeah, she feels like she needs to pay for her crime. So they get pulled onto Discovery, where the chief of security, who is a classic red shirt, her name is Landry. Don't bother getting to know her because she's not going to be around long.
Yeah, she's still here at the end of this episode.
She is, but she's gone soon.
No, we're going to have Ash Tyler later in the season.
That's right. And so she meets them at the shuttle. And there's a lot of dialogue. Meet Starfleet's first mutineer ever.
Oh,
is that plausible?
On, guys. Didn't you learn from the original series where you allegedly had the first mutiny ever on a Starfleet ship in the first series? It's like, no, this is hundreds of years in the future. There are going to be other opportunities for mutiny.
Right.
Burnham is not going to be the first.
Yes, that's not plausible. It's classic we have to overdo it syndrome that writers of all kinds of series do. Is it's got to be the biggest, the best, the worst, the hardest, whatever, but we have to oversell it. So they notice, that there are tons of science people as they're walking through the quarters. There are tons of science people on board. But they also notice that there's a bunch of security people wearing black badges, which is Section 31, isn't it?
Section 31, yeah. Although they kind of drop that because they don't later explain those people as Section 31.
Right. They notice, have you ever seen a black badge before? No, and that's it. We never hear about it again. So I thought that was interesting. So they bring the prisoners to the mess hall. Why are you giving them the run of the ship, essentially? Feed them in the brig.
Because it's Starfleet.
You put him in the lockup. You bring him, like other Star Trek series have figured this out. You put him inside the cell. You bring them a tray of food.
Even the paradisical Next Generation had holding cells.
Yeah. Well, and they do talk about that there is a brig that they put the other prisoners in. But then there's a fight between some of the prisoners in Burnham, and she handily uses Krav Maga, or the Vulcan equivalent, on them.
Yeah. Also, she gets to uncomfortably see Kayla Detmer, who was injured at the battle of the two roads that intersect each other. I mean, the binary stars. And
the battle of the crossroads.
Yeah. And she also gets to see uncomfortably Saru.
Yes. There's a uncomfortable moment. And she'll have a longer conversation with Saru later. Saru turns out to be the first officer on this ship now. And
First Officer Saru,
yeah.
which is fascinating. He uses a job title instead of a rank.
Right. He's not Commander Saru here. He's First Officer Saru, which later on they will then just call him Commander Saru, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's, like the writers are figuring out how ranks work. But she gets called to the captain's office, to the ready room, where she meets Lorca. Who's putting in some Visine. Yeah. He has an eye injury, which we'll find out later is related to him being from the...
Do we want to spoil Lorca's big secret in all the way through this, or do we want to talk around it?
I kind of think it's interesting to look at these things in light of what we know.
Yeah, I agree, but we could simply say things like, for people who haven't seen this,
I suppose,
because it is only 2 years old.
That's true.
We can say, okay, so there is more to Lorca, and they hint at it in here, and it's really interesting to know what is ultimately going to happen with Lorca and how that informs his scenes with Michael here.
Right.
Because Michael is suspicious. She thinks she's been brought here. She tells Lorca, she's immediately suspicious of, why am I even on this ship?
Right.
She says, I didn't receive notice of prison transfer, which is standard. And the shuttle changed course halfway here, which it shouldn't have. And then the shuttle ends up being destroyed. She's accusing Lorca of engineering this.
Right. And later on, she'll accuse him of wanting to use her to create a device in violation of war crimes laws.
Yeah. And so she's already suspecting something about Lorca. And there is significance to why he's using the eye drops. I mean, he tells her it's because of an eye injury, but later we're going to find out it's something else. And if you watch his reactions to her from the perspective of what we later know, it's clear that there's more going on here than what you would at first think.
And more to the reasons why he specifically wants her on his ship. So he happens to have a Tribble on his desk, by the way.
Purring.
Tribbles, by the way, will be the subject of a short trek coming up, the second season of Short Trek. There's going to be an episode called The Trouble with Edward, I think it is. And then he has a bowl of fortune cookies on his desk, which is just this weird affectation. Like, who eats fortune cookies as a snack?
It's like, who has a beagle on a starship? We captains need their weird affectations.
I guess so.
Tea, Earl Grey, hot.
Yeah, I mean, his affectation is fortune cookies. It's sort of a
Saurian brandy.
Yeah. All right, I'll buy it. So,
baseball.
So when Burnham tries to refuse, to participate in whatever it is Lorca's got going on, he won't hear of it. He basically says, I don't care what your preferences are. You're a prisoner. You're on board my ship, and I'll use you for whatever purposes I deem fit, as long as you're on my ship.
I like the way he does that, because now there is more to him, but as we're meeting him for the first time, he comes across as a captain who is determined to win this war. Right. And he will do whatever it takes to win this war with the Klingons. And so, I totally don't care if you're interested or not. You're doing this. Right.
You are a resource, just like she was about to go to a dilithium mine to be used as a resource. We're at war. We're going to use all the resources we have. By the way, Lorca has the actor, something Isaac, I forget what his real name is, has a kind of a Southern accent here. Now, I think he's British originally, but he's got this subtle Irish accent going on, which Southern accent, I meant to say.
I think Lorca as a character is meant to be from Texas, and he's doing a pretty good subtle Texas accent.
Yeah, I like it. I think it fits. It kind of gives him this the shady sheriff sort of, not shady, but the sheriff will do what it takes to get things done on the frontier sort of vibe, which I like. I like Lorca. I mean, he's got his gray areas going through this season, but I like him as a character in this series. So I like the accent too. It's interesting. So then they put Michael in regular quarters instead of in the brig, even though right now we think she's only going to be there for 48 hours or whatever. It's interesting they put her in with Tilly,
Tilly,
everybody's favorite.
So fun to see her. I love what she says when she comes in into the room. I mean, we have this great awkward Tilly dialogue where she's talking about, because of my special needs, they said I couldn't have a roommate, and now here I've got a roommate. It's so great, and I'm debating to tell you whether you're on my bed. And it's like, well, the beds are all the same. Well, no, they're not, because of my bed allergies. I'm allergic to polyester, and I have to have this special bedding, and that's why I couldn't have a roommate. And I'm going, no, that's why they told you couldn't have a roommate. You could put your special bedding in any cabin,
right?
And it would be fine.
You don't have a roommate because you talk to
you have other special needs.
Yeah, I love Tilly. Everybody loves Tilly. Yeah, she needs viscoelastic polyurethane. She's allergic to viscoelastic polyurethane foam, which is presumably what the mattresses are made from. Yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting. So at this point, she's still a cadet, and she nervously discovers who Michael is, while Michael suddenly stares at the ceiling. That whole scene is everything we love about Tilly, where she's like, well, It's not like you're like, oh, your name is Michael. I've never met a girl who's a Michael before. Well, there's only the mutineer Michael, but you're not her, of course, right? And of course, it's like, oh, ouch. We just stepped into it. But, you love her for it.
Yeah. Also, Michael as a female name is not that. I mean, okay, sure. I guess it hasn't always been common in recent history. It wasn't when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And I guess we can headcanon that it's not in this decade of the 23rd century, but actually right now in the 2010s, I know lots of teenage girls and young women named Michael.
Yeah.
They tend to spell it a little bit differently, but it's the name Michael.
Well, the first Michael I was ever aware of was Michael Leonard, the actress, who was the mom on the Waltons.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people would know that. And I also knew a Michael Ann. Curtis Martin, his wife. Michael. So I knew a few Michael.
And originally in the Old Testament, Michael was a female name before it was a male name, because it was the name of David's first wife.
Ooh, interesting.
Before the Archangel Michael made his debut.
Interesting. So, I mean, that was sort of a controversial decision to name Burnham Michael Burnham. People were all kind of weirded out by it, but it's not a big deal.
It's fine. It's fine. I like it. It's a nice character distinctive.
I think so. So we have
a boy named Sue. That's different.
Oh man, I would love to have Johnny Cash in this. I love that song. So they have a black alert. The computer calls for black, not red alert or yellow alert, but black alert, and then it's followed by these atmospheric effects that we never see again on the series. This like water droplets that form in the air and then fall on the surface and disappear. So it's some weird thing. But we never see that ever again.
We could headcanon that as they're still working out the kinks in this system. They're not. It's the spore drive, which is where this is heading, is nowhere near as powerful as it will be. In fact, that's one of the things that when we meet Stamets, he's talking to his colleague on the Glen.
Yeah.
And the Glen guy is claiming, we've got all this progress you guys haven't seen yet.
Right. Yeah, there's the Discovery's still jumping for, a couple dozen kilometers at a time.
Yeah,
while the
baby
Glen,
steps.
Yeah, the Glen's jumping into the Beta Quadrant. So before we get to that, Burnham does have that moment with Saru. Saru comes to collect her for her first day of work.
And gives her blueberries.
They're walking down the hall eating blueberries. And Burnham wants to say she's sorry, but can't manage to get the words out. And then he says to her, he believes that she's remorseful, but he still thinks she's dangerous and that she shouldn't be out of prison, which I think is a very interesting character moment between Saru and Michael. I mean, Saru at this point still has this fear ganglia. Still, he's still a what is the name of his? But he's
Kelpian.
Kelpian, right? He's still a fearful Kelpian who senses danger everywhere, that sort of thing, and he senses it with Michael. And this is he says to her, "You're dangerous." I mean, she's hurt him badly, professionally and personally.
I like what even though he's a Kelpian, he's like really humaning it up here.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am going to do what you didn't, and I'm going to protect my captain. And it's like, ooh, what a burn.
that was kind of a burn. This is Dom Bettinelli, CEO of the StarQuest Production Network, with a special message. StarQuest needs your help. Over the past year, we've grown by leaps and bounds. Every month, we produce dozens of shows covering numerous topics and all explore the intersection of faith and pop culture, which is the core of our mission. Some are among the most popular shows SQPN has ever produced in all its 13-year history. We're fulfilling our mission of evangelization in a whole new way, but that success is in danger. We must reach the financial break-even point if we're going to continue. Creating a dozen shows has caused our expenses to go up. We currently aren't making ends meet, and we're rapidly eating through our reserves. Soon they'll be gone, and we'll have to cut back many of our shows. We might even have to shut down altogether. That's why it's crucial we hear from you right now. Please visit sqpn.com/give today and click the Become a Patron button to make your monthly pledge. Or to give a one-time gift, click the Donate button. The need is urgent, so please go to sqpn.com/give today. Thank you from all of us at StarQuest, and God bless you. May we hear from you today. So Burnham shows up in engineering. They call it a special engineering space, which I thought was interesting, because I always looked at this when they talk about it as the engine room. I was like, this does not look like the engine room of a huge starship, but it's actually a special engineering space. It's not the main engine room.
And I had always kind of assumed through the first season that this is the engine room and Stamets is the main engineer, and he's not.
No, right.
He's this special research guy they brought on the ship and given him a special little place. We've never seen the main engineer or the main engineering room. Right.
And it's interesting that I picked it up on this time through, picked up the difference, but which I didn't pick up the first time. So first impressions don't go well with Stamets. He comes across kind of as a jerk a little bit.
Yeah, this is Stamets 1.0 before he gets tripped out on mushroom spores.
Yeah, exactly. This is the Stamets we all got to know and love in the first season. And there's a special room that you can only go into with a breath scan.
Yeah, breath prints. And I'm going, ooh, what a lame idea, for reasons we then go on to see in this episode. It's not as secure.
Is this more secure than retina scans or even fingerprints? Yeah. Burnham circumvents that pretty easily later on. We talk about Stamets' friend Strahl, who's working on a spore drive on the Glenn. Now, this is actually good writing here. I like the idea that they've taken this new potential drive that they've developed, and they've split it up between two ships, just in case.
Right.
They've split up the researchers, so if something happens to one, which, spoilers a little bit, it does, then we still have the other one to work on. I like that. That's good writing.
And this is actually the way research projects get done for the military. Yeah. They do not put all their eggs in one basket. In fact, they will have, the military will have, and the CIA will have research projects competing against each other to do the same thing.
Yes.
And then they end up picking whichever one does it better.
Right. And apparently Strahl and the Glenn are doing it better. They're doing something new that he doesn't reveal to Stamets. Tilly tells Burnham that she's the best theoretical engineer on the ship as a cadet, and that's why she's been taken out of the academy early. And given Discovery's status, that would make her probably the best theoretical engineer in Starfleet, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's implausible that she. There are several implausibilities here. One is she's the best engineer and she's this age.
Right.
It's like, okay, the best engineer of whatever subclass is going to be someone with decades of experience, maybe not even a human being.
Right.
And
Wesley Crusher syndrome.
Yeah, so it's not plausible. It is nice, though, to see they're addressing the question of why is she a cadet on this ship,
right?
And on this research ship, and why is she a cadet so involved in these crucial tasks? So the fundamental premise is implausible, but if you grant the fundamental premise, then it explains why she's here and why she's so involved in this high-level stuff.
Right. And in time of war, especially if you have losses among the officer corps, it's not implausible that they would take cadets who would be seniors, take them a year early or whatever and put them into service. That's not implausible either. But yeah, the whole idea of being the best theoretical engineer. So
maybe we got a little teenage braggadocio there.
Yes. Well, apparently we are assigned consoles or not. Which she has this little thing where she's like, she says to Michael, you can't use that console. It's assigned.
We have assigned seating.
Yeah. And then Stan was like, just use that console over there. We don't have assigned seating here or anything.
Yeah.
that was fun.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable.
So we get a message that something has happened to the Glen, something horrible. And so they send a shuttle to go to it. I don't understand why they don't just take the Discovery to it. Like, they send a shuttle out, and although maybe now that I think about it, maybe it's because we're not sure what happened to it, and we don't want to put all our eggs in the same basket.
Yeah. Yeah, you may want to keep the research ship at a distance so that if there's a problem.
Right.
Also, Lorca conspicuously is pushing Burnham ahead here. He's like, you're going on this mission.
Right.
And she's just arrived on the ship.
And is an infamous prisoner mutineer, which is interesting.
So Stamets does not, of course, want to take her. And so it makes it really obvious Lorca is really taking an extraordinary interest in Burnham here.
Right.
And that does support what we will later learn, that there is more to his relationship with her than what she is aware of, and she's right to be suspicious of what's going on. He is engineering, he's maneuvering her into place.
Yes. It's interesting they send Stamets, who now that his friend is dead, is now the only guy who knows about the spore drive.
Yeah, that's kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
He should not be over on that ship.
Right.
Also, we get a nice little bit with him where he's mad. Of course, this is Stamets 1.0. He's mad at everyone.
Right.
But he's mad at Lorca, who he views as a warmonger.
Right.
And he uses that phrase. So he's conspicuously, he's like, I don't want to be here. I want to be a researcher in a lab somewhere, and I've been impressed into service, and I have to do what this warmonger Lorca wants. Yep.
And Lorca kind of puts him in his place, like reminds him, I'm the captain. You are in Starfleet.
And you are going over to that twisted body farm over there.
Yes, we can jump into that. So on their way there, Stamets and Burnham have a conversation, and Burnham's trying to figure out what she broke into the special lab and discovered it's a mushroom farm, spore farm.
Big glowy hydroponic garden.
Yes, and she asks about what does this have to do with spores or mushrooms, and Stamets kind of responds with physics and biology are the same thing. They're not two different things. So, like Michael's trying to say they're different things. Says at the quantum level they're the same thing. Then he mentioned spores and panspermia as the building blocks of energy across the universe, and frankly I couldn't follow all of it. But Stamets explains that he and his friend Strahl were lab researchers. The war started, and then Starfleet split them to head two different teams to create the spore drive and to co-opt their research for war purposes. How we put it. So that's this is our like little download of basic information about the spore drive for the viewer. So then
it's also the moment at which the Star Trek fandom encounters its own equivalent of midichlorians.
Right, because this is the first season where all the Star Trek fans go, well, if they have this spore drive, where is it in the time of Kirk? And
that's now been addressed, basically.
Yep. So then once they get on the Glen, and they've got the security chief and a red shirt with them. Don't get to know him too well. Don't bother learning his name because he's a red shirt. They find a bunch of bodies that have been basically turned into pretzels. Everybody's been twisted up. Pretty gruesome, I have to say.
We saw something kind of like this. I think it was in the Enterprise episode, The Expanse, where like a ship of Vulcans got all twisted up or something.
Yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah, it's really creepy.
It was at the beginning of the Xindi arc.
Okay. But they also find a bunch of dead Klingons who are not all twisted up. So therefore, they conclude they came on after the accident.
Right. And there's a single living Klingon redshirt who shushes them.
And then
which is awesome.
Is immediately killed by the giant we find out it's a giant tardigrade eventually, very quickly.
Yep.
Which starts chasing them, and they chases them into the engineering space where they find their equivalent of the drive, although it has this new device on it, which they take. It's trying to get through the door. It can claw through the bulkhead, this tardigrade thingy. And they're trying to escape, And
we should explain for people who haven't seen this yet what
Yep.
a tardigrade is, because I mean, I knew what they were going into the series. I went, yay, it's a tardigrade.
right.
Tardigrades
reality,
are
Yeah.
in reality, tardigrades are a microscopic animal. They're also called water bears, and they're incredibly tough. You can like dry them out and then rehydrate them, and they just keep going.
Yes.
They're incredibly tough. They can survive in very harsh conditions, and they're really cute and have a kind of weird snout.
Yeah.
And this is giant. This is like that, only it's giant and flies through dimensions.
And it's literally the size of a bear at this point.
Yeah.
So
The big
So-
bear.
Burnham decides to save the others by getting the thing to chase her through the Jeffries tubes. And this thing was like super fast, like before. Like it was faster than you could see it. And then suddenly when it's chasing Burnham, it's really slow.
Yeah, and she's also reciting Alice in Wonderland to herself. I'm going, okay, I know that was an important book from your childhood, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's a Vulcan calming technique you were taught or anything. That's
Yeah.
just weird.
And of course, that book will become even more important in the second season, the Alice in Wonderland. But there's a bit of a through the looking glass moment here, I guess.
And what she's doing is she's letting the others get back to the shuttle by distracting the tardigrade.
Right, and making it chase her through the Jeffries tubes, which it barely fits in, so it I guess it's slower.
I could slow it down, yeah.
And then so she's making her way to the shuttle bay where she will drop through and into the shuttle through a hatch in the shuttle, and then they'll escape out the door, which is a quite
Little convenient.
yes, it's very convenient that hatch was right under that hole which you dropped through. So back on the Discovery, Lorca. Oh, by the way, that red shirt, yeah, he got killed.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, but back on the Discovery,
Yeah.
Burnham is like, Lorca, dude, you so brought me here, and you are so testing me.
Right, and he wants her to become a part of the crew. He wants to make her part of the Discovery crew and stay with them. And she assumes that he brought her there to help make. She doesn't know what the spore drive is yet, but she assumes that it's some sort of biological
Forbidden weapon.
Yeah, that would be in violation of the Geneva Accords
Treaty of something.
the Geneva Protocols of 1928 and 2155. I mean, I remember hearing about the Geneva Accords, in World War II movies and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
For treatment of prisoners and war crimes and that sort of stuff. So apparently, it was updated in 2155 for space, and she assumes that it's a weapon. He's like, no, it's a drive. It will take us anywhere we want in an instant to any place in the galaxy. We could drop it on the Klingons wherever. He says,
I like when he explains it to her. It's like, we're not building a new weapon. We're building a new way to fly.
Right. That's a great way of putting it. He tells her that Starfleet gave him discretion to fight the war as he sees fit, which is an interesting amount of discretion to give anyone. But
he's on his research project thingy.
Yeah.
He's not on the front lines. They're still hammering the bugs out of this system.
But it means that he can take this the Starfleet's first mutineer out of life imprisonment and use her for his purposes. But he plays on her Starfleet training, her desire to explore, and then he puts her. He takes her to the spore chamber in the engineering, and does something that makes it seem like she's traveling to. Is she actually traveling to all these different places? One after another, or is it just some kind of image?
I don't know what's going on there. It's kind of holodecky. Maybe this is like a proof of concept video they did or something.
Right. It's very weird. And again, we never see anything like it again, as far as I can remember. Maybe we do. He says that he chose her specifically because of her actions at the binary stars, shows her ability to predict accurately. She predicted what the Klingons were going to do, and her willingness to do the right thing at great personal cost, which was, he says that she was going to do the right thing in her mutiny. And then he
basically admits getting her on this ship. I mean, well, I guess maybe he could say, I didn't admit that. It was chance that brought you to the ship, and then I picked you based on your actions.
Right.
But the implication seems to be, especially given what we know about him later, he engineered that whole thing, including the death of the shuttle pilot.
Yeah, that seems very sinister. So, and then he has this line. He says, universal law is for lackeys.
Laws.
I'm sorry. Universal laws is for lackeys. Context is for kings, which is the idea that leaders need to be willing to break the rules at the right moment for the right reason, which is morally suspect.
It can be understood in a Machiavellian way that is thoroughly amoral, but I don't think he means it that way. I think he means it lackeys need to do what they're told. And so there is a sense in which, because they don't have the big picture, they need to follow orders in a more rigid way.
Right.
But context is for kings. And so kings, because they do have the big picture, they have the context. That doesn't mean they can do whatever they want. That would be the Machiavellian amoral interpretation.
Okay.
But they see a more complex playing field that they need to interact with, because they have the responsibility for ultimate decision making. So they don't need to just follow rules in the absolute much of the time, although from a moral perspective, in order to fight a just war, there are limits.
Yeah.
But moral limits is different than following orders, which is what Burnham's big fault was. She didn't follow orders. She did the moral thing.
Right.
She tried to do the Vulcan hello to avoid a war with the Klingons. She tried to get T'Kuvma captured so he couldn't be used as a martyr.
Right.
And she was doing the right things, but she broke rules and ended up leading to a horrible situation.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That makes sense then. Then we have another scene where we see the prison shuttle taking off with the other prisoners on board. We see Saru is in the Discovery's mess hall as it does, but then his threat ganglia trigger as he watches it go to warp, presumably because he senses that Burnham's is not on board. Yeah. That she's on Discovery, not on board that shuttle. And Burnham then is now back in her quarters with Tilly, the one she now shares with Tilly. And they have a discussion about how Tilly wants to emulate her. Tilly wants to be a captain someday, and therefore wants to emulate Michael, who was one of the best officers in Starfleet before her mutiny. And then we have this.
And also, this is another, if you're now, maybe when Tilly said she's the best theoretical engineer, she just meant on the Discovery, not in the world.
Yeah.
But even so, if you're this genius theoretical engineer, they're going to put you on the engineering track. They're not going to put you on the captain track.
Right. Well, in fact, that we get that in next season where she transfers to the command track, and she's trying to do all the command training. So there's a little bit of that.
But they're not going to let you. If you're some genius engineer, you're going to be an engineer. They're not going to waste you on being a captain.
Right. So then, as Burnham's unpacking, she pulls out her actual physical book copy of Alice in Wonderland, and they have a discussion about the fact that Alice in Wonderland was read to her by Amanda, and that it taught her that the world isn't always logical. And then we have this scene at the end with Lorca and the security chief Landry in a science lab, a little science lab, where they destroy the Glen. They shoot it and explode it because they apparently can't let it fall into Klingon hands. So they have to destroy it rather than save it and reuse it as a ship during a war, I guess. All right. And then Landry says that she followed his orders and beamed aboard the tardigrade, which is now behind a force field in the lab. He goes over to the entrance to this little room where the force field is and calls out, "Here, kitty, kitty," and it comes rushing at the force field and slams into it.
Yeah.
So very, very sinister, and that's where the episode ends. So
the end.
Any other notes, Jimmy, on this?
Nope, that was it.
All right. So that was Context is for Kings, Star Trek Discovery. We'll continue to go through that first season of Discovery until we finish out all the episodes, and then when a new season of Discovery starts, which will probably occur before we get through this first season, unfortunately.
Because we're going through all the different Star Trek series sequentially.
Yeah. So we'll end up having to come back to this season probably between the second and third season. That's just the way it is. So, but I'm looking forward to talking about the Discovery season 3 when that happens. All right, so but for now, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including James S., Jonathan H., Ramon S., Ryan Z., and Jack B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows we do at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of Context is for Kings in our discussion of it? Let us know by visiting sqpn.com/trek or the SQPN Facebook page and leave us some feedback. You can also send an email to trek@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the original series episode, The Enemy Within.
And hopefully by that point, Father Corey will have been transferred back off the prison shuttle and will be back here with us.
Yes, but hopefully it's not the Mirror Universe version.
Yeah. Father Corey.
Father Corey. Or no, Enemy Within is where you're split into the good and evil halves. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So maybe, hopefully it'll be the good Father. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thanks, Dom. Live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, my Uncle Everett plays in a Beatles cover band. It hardly makes him John Lennon.